You are listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers Podcast, TV show deep dive bonus episodes. These were originally recorded as videos, but technical limitations kept us from getting them out to you, so we have retreated to the audio-only format of a podcast. I have done my best to remove the silences from when we were watching scenes and chaotic background noises, but otherwise not edited the content at all for coherent thoughts. As with our regular podcast episodes, you can find these ad-free through our Patreon at patreon.com/WoTSpoilers. We are back! Wheel of Time Spoilers, Episode 7, Breakdown Part 2. On the final day before the complete season is out, we are recording this mere hours before Episode 8 drops, and we're gonna rush through this because we want time to pass so we can get to that final agonizing, torturing episode and be safe to go back on the internet, because I basically don't feel safe to go online right now because I don't want to see any of the promo stuff at all.
No, I saw something that was like promo materials, like closing. Closing Twitter. Don't need any of that. I don't even want the official promo material.
No, me either. I don't want it. Stop teasing me. I will get there when I get there.
But yeah, today, at the end of the day, we'll have watched all of season 1, which is very exciting. Yeah.
I can't. But for now, we are rejoining episode 7 at about the 27-minute mark when we go into this weird, dramatic cards on the table kind of conversation. It starts out with Moiraine's cards on the table, and then it moves into some emotional cards that may or may not exist being on a table. I'm more of this type person. Like, I want these conversations. Maybe not the topics of the conversations necessarily. There's a certain, the love triangle-ish that we'll talk about. But, like, the actual interpersonal relationship conversations that we get and can, have fun with that are more than just a couple of lines. Something that's an actual long discussion. So I'm excited to get to this. Yeah. So we start with Faldara at sunset,
right,
which is simply gorgeous. It's just they like to do some cityscape sunset shots, and I approve of that choice.
It's like, yay, VFX artists, this is a good place to put your money.
Right.
So, yeah, the bartender and then Nynaeve stop lying to us, which is something I do want to say to the Aes Sedai all the time. Stop. And they're like, well, we don't lie. We're just... And then Moraine's
bending the truth into something unrecognizable. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. And Nynaeve's eye roll, like, I know you don't lie, but stop lying to us. Stop deceiving us with half-truths and technical truths, right? Like, and I'm glad Moiraine then does. Yes, she says, you forget I can't lie, but then immediately does clarify.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that she has known Min since she was young. And with what we get from Min's backstory later, that she was in Tar Valon the first time that she had a vision. Like, they have written a different or a more detailed backstory for Min and Moraine's relationship than the books give us. And I'm interested.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, clearly they've changed quite a bit of Min's backstory to put her in a different, and make her a Borderlander, to have her go to Tar Valon. Like, there's quite a bit going on there that is not in the books. Why do you think she's so convinced that the person who goes to the Eye and is not the dragon will die?
I don't know. She even let Swan convince her that there was hope earlier, and now she's reverted back to being convinced that it's an absolute suicide mission. I think it's just her rationale about what she says just here, like, but ground to dust between two forces of nature. Like, there's no way mere mortals will survive being in the presence of this event. Like, that, I think, is just an assumption she's making from what she knows about, like, cosmology and metaphysics. I don't think she has anything to actually go on. It's a very weird conviction for her to cling to.
Do you think it's also possible that maybe it's a prophecy about the last battle, and she's like, well, maybe this will be the last battle, but it won't apply?
She is definitely acting as though she thinks this is the last battle, so... The funny thing is that in neither the Eye of the World or the final book do all the companions die. It's a remarkably safe place to go as the companion to the Champion of Light. I mean, even Alana dying, she was brought there wounded. So, like,
Moradin. And he was technically between Rand and the Dark One.
Okay, fine, sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think she's just wrong, but she's very, very convinced of her reasoning.
Damn it.
The tension, the desire to escape from this fate, it's really, really rough. It's a rough situation to just be constantly held on tenterhooks and be told, okay, we're going to have some clarity soon. No clarity, actually, but soon. No, actually kidding. We're familiar with this, what this does to your emotions. This is just at a much higher scale because it's their actual lives.
I love this shot of Perrin and that look he's giving. That's the shot of the skeptical, angry villager looking at the Aes Sedai being like, are you full of shit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just like Two Rivers stubbornness incarnate right there.
So, and according to the extras, Min is canonically Andorran, just living in the Borderlands? Okay.
Well, she clearly was living in Tarvalon as a teenager. I'm guessing that Moraine must have installed her up here in the Borderlands or found her a place to be anonymous that happens to be in the Borderlands. Maybe she even was like, I'm going to come through Shinar a lot. I want you to be here so I can check in on you. Like, I bet that's what's going on there. She's a Borderlander by adopted nation rather than by origin.
I like that she says it's easy to use doubt as a crutch because she's being assertive about being right, simply saying, this is what I think will happen. Like, don't go in there thinking that you can survive.
Yeah. I also feel like she's putting all of her cards on the table so much more in this conversation than she does in the equivalent part of the book because she's much closer to the end of her rope. I feel like she's a lot more backed into a corner and desperate and flailing here than she was in the books. And that's why she's giving them more information and being much more blunt with them. And I think part of that is because she's so convinced they're going to die. Like, she wasn't convinced of that in the books. Like, the stuff she's trying to balance here is different. And
what's interesting is in the books, the Eye of the World she's trying to get to Tarvalon and she can't, and she gets diverted to the Eye of the World. Here she gets to Tarvalon and then she goes, well, what's next? And the Amaryl says, I need you to go to the Eye of the World. Right? And so that's almost a different sort of like, well, we got to Tarvalon, now what? Right? What do I do with these people now that I have them? Yeah.
And then Machin Shin gets in her head and makes her doubt, and her reaction to that is to double down and to say, I am so right that I've never been wrong in my life. I'm so right in this moment. And it's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes you need to have confidence and sometimes you need to have doubt, but she seems to think that her conviction is enough of an argument for the others, which I think is very Aes Sedai arrogance to a T. Like, you thinking you're right is not actually enough.
Right. Just because you can't lie doesn't mean you're always right.
Yeah.
I think she's doing something deliberate here, which is saying you'll all die. So if one of you knows that you're the Dragon Reborn, it's time for you to come forward.
Oh, I thought she was just browbeating Nynaeve because they clash. I didn't read that into it.
I think she's going for exactly what happened, which is, this is it. You're all going to die unless one of you admits to being the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, I was just distracted thinking about how much she's also setting herself up to die.
Yes.
I was just very distracted by that. The fact that she's like, Lan and I are going to go die. How many of you do we have to take? Yeah, no, that's interesting that she's like anything to be able to not have to kill all of them, I think is kind of where she's at. Like, any possible way she can reduce the number of deaths. But she can't survive. So she's operating from a very nihilistic place of like, I'm a dead woman walking. I'm not going to call to your feelings.
And it's been pretty clear going into this that like she thinks she's going to die between Lan, all the stuff with Lan and the releasing of the bond to just the conversation she's had with the Emmons Fields 5. Like, I will die. She's going into this thinking that death is inevitable. I don't know if she's right or not. That's the other thing.
At this point, like, I don't want to say that I think she won't. I I genuinely don't think she will, because her death is so impactful. I think that makes a lot more sense for like a season 3 finale.
There's also a bunch of meta reasons to think she's not going to die. Like, the fact that Rosamund Pike moved to Prague, like, she wouldn't do that for a single season of episode. The fact that she's been filming season 2, probably not just flashbacks and, you know, Ghost Moraine, like, all those things makes me think that she will survive, even if the character is convinced she's going to die. For sure. Rand's thought process from here on out is really interesting to me, because I think he's the one who knows he's the Dragon Reborn, so he's the one who has to convince himself to come forward. He also has to convince everybody else. He also has to distract everybody else. Yeah, he's thinking on multiple tracks at the same time. He's processing her information for himself and trying to figure out how to strategically interact with the others, given what he's actively in the process of coming to terms with. It's a lot. And the performance, I think, really does justice to that conflict. Yeah. But his, like, oh, what she says is optional. That, like, anyone who goes is going to die. He's like, okay, anyone who goes who's not me is going to die. I have to stop that. I can't lose anyone else in this room is literally what he says. It's nice that it's not just about Egwene. It's nice that it's about all of them. But yeah, when he says that and you know how the episode ends, you're like, yeah, this whole conversation, whole different light. Not to mention, in the books, that's what he does. He's like, oh, once I realize that I'm the Dragon Reborn, I need to drive everybody else away, so I go piss them off. Canonically, that's exactly what he does. Yeah, it happens in a room in Faldara. Like, yeah. I'm interested if it's going to happen again after the events of the Eye of the World, if he's going to double down and recycle this scene when they're all like, everything's fine now, and he's going to be like, the fuck it is, or if they're going to move on in some other way. So, yeah, the idea of you can protect the people in the Two Rivers simply by leaving was one thing, but now you can't protect them anymore by leaving. You actually have to fight the Dark One. And if you sacrifice your life, well, that's worth it. That's Egwene's POV. Yeah. Yeah, she's very Amerlin Egwene here, taking leadership of the group, saying we have to self-sacrifice, we have to give up our personal identities and hopes and dreams in the name of saving the world. It's like, just give this woman a stole already. Right. Like, God, she's the Amerlin. But I'm totally with Nynaeve here, being like, this is just what Moraine's, you're just falling in line with her because you believe in the Aes Sedai's mission to the exclusion of everything else. Like, this is a conflict they have in the books, and I'm super on Nynaeve's side here. Like, Egwene, use your brain. Like, she does, but this is a conflict that they have in the books, like, repeatedly, like many scenes. This is why Elaine slaps them, or slaps Egwene in that one scene, is this fundamental conversation that they keep having. And it's about the trust of the Aes Sedai versus skepticism about the Aes Sedai. Like, it might be the only way she thinks to save the world, but is it really? Is that the right thing for us to be doing? You know, is she just sacrificing us as pawns, as tools? And the fact that Moraine's willing to die herself doesn't necessarily make her any more likely to be right. It just means she's a blue, you know? Like, that's how blues are. Just because the cult leader's drinking the Kool-Aid doesn't mean you should too. Right, exactly. But then, of course, Egwene rejoins, rebuts that with a also very good argument, which is that Nynaeve is mostly being obstinate because it's Moraine saying it. That's a lot of her resistance. That's fair. She's also convincing Rand here a lot. all that's going right to Rand's head of like, if there's a chance, it's worth going. And you might be the Dragon Reborn. You need to protect everybody. Like, all those coming together in his head to be like, oh, really got to drive these people away from me so I can slip away. Right. He's like, she's making really good arguments and is going to convince all of us to go. I need to make sure that these arguments only land with me and that everyone else doesn't. Because fuck, she's right. She can't convince everyone. Sorry. I don't know why that came out to me as, you're a wisdom, Harry. You're a wisdom, Nynaeve. Hagrid. No! Stop! I mean, she is a wizard, so there is that, like... That's true. She is a wizard. That line is the important thing. That's when he really makes the choice to piss everybody off and, okay, I need to commit to this. I am the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. Yeah. He's finally come to terms with it. Like, it took him a few minutes, but it's happened now. It's now crystallized, and he's going to start stabbing people with his assholery.
Why is he so hung up on it being Matt? That's the second time he's brought it up.
I thought it was odd in the sense that Perrin's usually the first in line for self-sacrifice. It is a little odd that he's the one really holding down the I don't want to die contingent. That's a little out of character, but I guess someone had to. And as the person who's least dragony, perhaps, of all of them, it makes sense for him to be the least interested in going to die, because he's probably pretty sure at this point it's not him. He doesn't have the same doubts going on, I don't think. But it's weird to me, because Perrin's usually like, a reason to get myself killed to save people? Sign me up! Like, that's Perrin's MO. So, I don't know. That eye roll.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Do we have to? Yeah. She's like, do I have to say it out loud? Do I have to say, like, he's kind of a piece of shit? He's not your best friend. He's probably not the Dragon Reborn. He picked up a shitty cursed dagger because he's a dumbass. Like, do I really have to say all that out loud?
The way it's all in that head turn and the way she turns her, it's brilliant body language. And I mean, it does a little bit contrast with how she, like, defends her feelings about Matt later. But, like, I mean, I have a sibling. Like, sibling feelings are complicated, and we've always considered the Evansfield Five to be fundamentally a pack of siblings. So, yes, she can think he's definitely not the dragon and still be willing to die for him. Those can both be true. Yeah. And
love him and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. You can think that someone's maybe not like the most honest person in the world and still love them, you know?
Right. Like, he's still a good person. He's just not the dragon, like, obviously, which is, you know, I feel that. I feel where she's coming from with that, even more than in the books.
Everything in this conversation is amped up to 11 because Rand is going to take it personally. He's going to be like, oh, how dare you? You know, he's going to bring up things that he knows. Or Egwene doesn't think Matt. Names. Rand knows that Egwene doesn't think Matt is the Dragon Reborn, so he brings it up so he can be offended by it, so he can piss everybody off. I
mean, I don't know. He makes up with her, like, in the next scene. He's not doing a very good job of driving people off. I think a lot of this is actually... I think that this is him being really upset that he's the dragon and just freaking out at the nearest thing to piss him off. And he had that whole, like, month on the road with Matt on top of their, like, childhood together. So I feel like he's more just lashing out in sheer rage and anger. If it was meant to drive her off, he does a very bad job of keeping her driven off later when they have makeup sex. So I don't know how calculated this is and how much this is just him reacting to, I have to go kill myself to save my friends.
Right, and Perrin did bring it up first, but I feel like Rand is weaponizing it.
Yeah, he is. I'm just not sure that he's thinking it through as thoroughly as you are.
Oh, no, it's entirely an emotional reaction. Like, this is not a conscious thing he's doing. This is sort of an emotional reaction. I can't lose these people. I have to drive them off. I'm going to insult them and be emotional and angry. I like that about Matt. That he may steal and gamble, but all the money he gets, he gives to help other people. It's not for himself. It's for the people around him.
It leads to him having a fairly questionable priority chain and decision tree, but, like, you know, to someone who's watched the process develop from close at hand, like, it all makes sense. All those steps are logical.
That emotion in her voice.
Yeah. Also, like, observe how much Nynaeve is, like, trying to referee this whole thing and just totally failing at it. Like, her need to micromanage what's happening here is just so present from the very beginning of the conflict. It's a lot, and I don't know why she's so invested in refereeing.
I mean, I think she loves Egwene, right? I mean, Egwene is her number one person, so she's there to protect her and everything.
I don't know. It feels weird to me how anxious she is to... I don't fucking get it. I do not get it, because on a lot of levels, I don't get it in world and I don't get it out of world. I do not understand this interaction.
I see it as Perrin. I would not call it a love triangle. I would call it a childhood crush. And Perrin always is like, well, you got to treat her better, you know? I don't know. I see it sort of as a light.
So if he's just carrying a childhood crush, friendship for her, why is Nynaeve so desperate to keep the lid on this that she accidentally overturns the entire boiling kettle on the whole situation? If it's nothing, why is Nynaeve so invested in keeping it a secret? Like,
I don't see that at all. I don't read that at all.
Well, I mean, obviously she blows the lid off of it here, but like she keeps trying to micromanage things. And it seems like when she blows up, that's what she was trying to micromanage around. And I don't get it. If it's not a real thing, that Egwene clearly doesn't think it's a thing. Like, why is Nynaeve so wrong about this? Like, I like the characterization of her being so mad that she accidentally spills a secret. Like, I do like that characterization of how her anger gets the better of her, but I do not understand the content of the scene that happens. Everything else about this doesn't feel coherent to me.
Well, we haven't seen them fighting over her.
But clearly they were for years. Like, I'm tired of you fighting over her implies that she has years of thinking that was happening. Why would she think that? If she's wrong, I thought she was better with knowing her people than that.
I think she's just frustrated with this minor problem. I don't know. This whole argument is all about blowing minor things out of proportion. Like, I'm not saying that Perrin didn't have a crush on Egwene, but it should just be a minor, not important detail, right? And I feel like everybody's just blowing it out of proportion, including Nynaeve.
But it feels like Nynaeve's been blowing it out of proportion for years.
I don't get that in the slightest. No, I don't agree with that.
You think she just came up with this entire nonsense conspiracy in the last few minutes?
No, I think it's been during the journey. During the journey?
I didn't see that at all in the journey.
Well, we haven't seen the journey at all, so that's...
Exactly. So, like...
I just don't see it as this thing that she's been worried about for years. It's just this thing that's like, oh, this is frustrating. Why are you guys dealing with this? We have other issues to deal with right now, you know?
I don't like it. I don't get it. I don't like how confusing and inconclusive every time I think about it. I feel it's just, what is happening here? Why is this included? It can't all just be to show us that Nynaeve will explode. Like, there's easier, faster ways to get her to blow up. What is the point of this scene?
I mean, it's Perrin's backstory, right? They've changed Perrin, right? He is this guy who had a crush on Egwene, ended up with Layla, always felt guilty about his crush on Egwene. It always was hovering over their relationship, even if it wasn't a big thing. And then when she died, it was absolutely a problem, right? Like, there were hints in Winternight that there was something going on between them. We saw Egwene pull them both into the dance. Like, you know, we know that Perrin got together with his wife the day that Egwene was taken off the market. It's a different backstory.
I can get all of that, but I don't get the always fighting line from Nynaeve. That's the part where I can't see the through line.
It's just, there's so much of their interaction. This is why I love this so much, because we haven't gotten any of their previous interaction. Like, we get hints of this previous interaction, of these conversations that have happened, but like, we haven't seen any screen time with the 4 of them or 5 of them interacting much. You know, even down to just like saying goodbye to their families on Winternight. Like, they haven't had a chance to emotionally bounce off of each other in the slightest. And they're finally doing it. And with the canonical changes around Perrin's backstory, which I don't like, but I don't see it as crazy that Nynaeve would, like, burst out in a moment of anger to be like, this is frustrating. Even if it was a fairly minor thing.
All right, well, whatever.
Especially in defense of Egwene.
Yeah, just make Egwene feel really awkward with two of her closest friends. That's great.
No, I mean, it's clearly a mistake. I mean, she clearly has that like blood draining from her face moment of, oh shit, I can't believe I just said that. Like, that's the unspoken truth that we've all been dancing around, but saying it out loud is not okay. But also because it's one of those things where no one said it out loud because it's not that serious. And
then just because emotions are high, it becomes serious.
It becomes serious. Like, a minor childhood crush in a small fucking village is not like... Of course I had a crush on almost every girl I grew up with at some point or another, right? Like, it's just part of growing up in a small village. You're going to imagine a future with every single person there, you know? And Egwene is clearly the prize of the town of that age group, right? Like... She's the most popular girl. She's the mayor's daughter. She's got the money. She's got the prestige. She's going to be the next wisdom. Like, all that. Like, she is, you know. Tam is the guy. I don't know. I guess my issue is not with it being in there. My issue is the focus in the show. Like, why is the show focusing on it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I just... Not seeing a whole lot of reasons for them to have included it at all.
No, I'm 100% down with that. Like, don't fucking need it, right? Don't want it, but it's there. And they are being pretty consistent with it. And Nynaeve's comment is in keeping with the idea that this is something that's been going on for a while. They haven't shown us the two of them fighting, because, again, we haven't seen any real good interaction between them. So it does feel a little out of the blue, but... With the change in backstory, I can understand why they have it in there.
I can't. I hate it. Burn it with fire. Balefire.
I'm just trying to separate those two things, right? Hating it versus understanding why it's in there.
You have talked in circles around me many times at this point, and I still don't get it. Still don't agree with your interpretation. Still think it's trash and inconsistent with everything that is good and right in the world. I just... don't think you're going to convince me at this point.
Not really trying to.
It's let's hope this is a low point in the whole series and we never have to speak of it again.
Yeah.
Just hope for that.
Yeah, I mean, I hate love triangles. Just hate them.
I hate love triangles categorically. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, like, adding a love triangle to a story that doesn't need it. I guess partially what I'm trying to do is my mental gymnastics are to make it not a love triangle. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, I can respect that.
What I'm trying to do is say this is not an actual love triangle. It's just an argument of heightened emotions where someone saw, a relatively minor childhood crush and made a big deal out of it.
I can get behind that.
Again, I am doing this a lot with the show where I'm like, I don't know, but I'm headcanoning the way I like it. So... And part of that is just the lack of runtime. I just don't we didn't get the interaction between Rand and Perrin. I'd like it better if we'd seen that argument for episodes, but we didn't.
It's our first fake smile from Rand. It's our first heartbreaking smile. Doesn't touch every smile from him before has been all the way up to the eyes and our hearts all melt. This is the first time it's a bitter mask, and it was gonna see that so many more times. So many more times. Oh, God. Sorry. Just that smile. Because I actually love you, Rand. That's my favorite headcanon for this.
Yeah, I do like that.
I've seen. Yeah. I've seen that so many places at this point. It's my favorite way of fixing this bullshit is that it's actually Perrin trying to confess his love for Rand.
The only woman I've ever loved is my wife, but I love you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the actual love triangle problem was never about Egwene. It's like, that's my favorite way of just plastering over this for comedy's sake. I don't think that's what they're going for because the Black Wind made it seem like Perrin's pretty straight, but I like it.
And I like what Perrin's saying here is like, I only ever love my wife. I do not love Egwene.
Right.
You are blowing this out of proportion.
But he still has that weird puritanical guilt in the back of his head that makes him, more defensive than is strictly necessary.
Because, God forbid, we have emotions for two women at the same time. Rand, how dare you? You will never understand having the love of two women at the same time. That seems absolutely insane. Yeah. It's just like, come on.
Yep.
And Nynaeve stepped on a landmine during conversation. That's the only thing. Like, she stepped on a landmine. Like, I've done it. It sucks. Pisses off everybody in the room. It's not false, but it's not really true. And it would have been better not to say out loud.
It seemed like a very unnecessary. She threw herself onto a landmine that was easy to avoid. That would have been easy to avoid. Like, she did not have to do that, and she is now living with the unresolved tension of 1,000 miserable deaths, and grabs her braid for comfort, because apparently every woman has been through this moment in the course of her life. Every woman has horribly stepped on a landmine and ruined a good fight between friends, apparently. Because that was the lore with the braid, is like, remember when you go through something, like, hold this braid and know that every woman has come before you. So every time she grabs her braid, I'm like, in her head, she's like, I'm not the first one to fuck up this bad. I'm not the only one who's ever made this mistake. Like, other people have recovered. That's how I always see her grabbing her braid, given that episode 1 lecture. But it's pretty unprecedented level of fucked up you just pulled, Nynaeve.
Now, she's looking at the past, right? Is that an army of Trollocs in the past, or is that Valdaran soldiers?
No, there's this like structure in the past. It's like this honeycomb wall thing that's a couple stories tall. And I think that they have like barracks in it. So they have like actual watchers like on shift, like at the actual gap where they've literally built this, like, it's not a great wall, but it is something. And so you're seeing their fires. That's what I was getting from that. And we get another good shot of it at the end when Rand and Moraine come out. We'll be able to see it in better detail. But it's not an army of Trollocs. No.
No, okay. I completely missed it. I'm just like, that's such a weird regular pattern of torches and fire. Like, I figured it was Valdaran or something. But it sort of looks like in episode 1 when the Trollocs are coming down the mountain and they go, what is that? And it's like that sort of that similar look of lights coming down the side of a pass.
Fortunately for our heroes, not yet.
That's next episode.
Yeah.
I love that. You've given them a semblance of a choice. Not you've given them a choice. You made it seem like they have a choice. There's no actual choice. There's no...
As chat called it, the toddler's choice. Do you want orange socks or pink socks? You're wearing socks. That's not negotiable. Yeah. I wonder at her comment about willingly. Like, does she know how to make people do what she wants? I think it has more to for bringing people along.
I think it has more to do with Nynaeve's comment of you can't drag us all along unwillingly. And she's like, yeah, that's a good point. I do have to make them come willingly.
Just the way she says that, I'm wondering if she's like, I have a piece of forbidden knowledge in my pocket I don't want to deploy, but I will if I have to. Like, we know she digs up weird weaves from dusty attics. Like, maybe there's a blue way to Pied Piper people for at least a short period of time. You know, some scrap of compulsion, not true compulsion, but one of those things that Varen picks apart to figure out compulsion. Like,
perhaps.
Maybe.
I think it has more to do with just like tying them up in a sack and throwing them over the shoulder. Go Lan. Like, that's more what I expect her to use to pull them along. I don't think that would work. I mean, unless she deployed like some Faldaran soldiers to help. I could see her getting like a guard of like 8 to forcibly take the lambkins to the sacrificial altar. I could see that being what she's talking about for sure, because Agelmar would definitely listen to her over the kids. Yeah. What the hell was that? That was her, I think, that was Thoughts of Swan. And Min's, the Amerlin seat will be your downfall. Because the only way for Lan to know she has something on her mind and to ask her straight out and for her to say nothing is for her to decide that it means nothing because she is a blue and the mission comes first. And so it doesn't matter what visions Min had about her lover. It doesn't matter what if she's ever going to see Swan again. None of that matters. It's nothing. I was thinking... That was how I interpreted that. I was thinking, yes, nostalgic, but I was thinking nostalgic about Lan. in particular. Because she's talking about transferring the bond, because she's about to die, and then she talks about how I've taken everything from you, all that kind of stuff. So that she's literally thinking about what is she going to do with Lan, assuming she's going to go tomorrow and die, and he's going to be left.
And she does they go into some of the dialogue from Great Hunt, referencing New Spring, but it's the Great Hunt conversation that lets you know New Spring is going to be a book he writes in a few years. So that actually makes even more sense. And honestly, thoughts of Swan would logically lead into thoughts of Lan.
They'd be together, yeah.
The romance thing, the loss of potential for having a life. I mean, there's a lot of ways but no, I think you're right, actually, that her concern over Lan. But in order for her to say it's nothing, she has to do that. She has to rationalize that it's nothing. There's a lot of mental gymnastics she could do because it's an emotional topic. But
that's one of those things where I'm like,
and I think you're right.
What are you thinking about? Nothing. Like, it's a colloquialism. It's not a lie.
Well,
it's
he
just
specifically feels something is bothering her and specifically asks her about that. So, but yeah, no, I think you're right. It's more about Lan.
Right. So she's talking about the smell of the Borderlands reminds us of the night we met. She's talking about nostalgia, right? Like, that's thinking back to the time and New Spring.
Yep. And that's what he references here. That's a line straight out of Great Hunt.
So 2 things, right? First, there's more to life than this mission and me, she says. Well, yeah, Nynaeve. She's noticed a little bit of interaction there. And then he says, I have nothing to live for and nothing to die for.
Before you. I had nothing to live for and nothing to die for. Before they got bonded.
What about Malkier? I mean, the whole dying for Malkier, fight against the Blight thing is not something he's brought up.
But there's the whole war he cannot win. That is his war with the Shadow. He has nothing to die for in the sense that he can't change anything by dying for Malkier. Like, in the books, he's much more okay with the idea that he should die alone in the Blight. It seems like movie land, show land is a little bit more interested in doing something for the Malkiri refugees that still exist in the world. But to me, that was just a different way of saying what he said in the books. Like, before you, I had no way of effectively fighting the thing that took my country. All I could do was senselessly die. There was nothing to achieve with that death, which I think Bookland could take a leaf out of Showland's pamphlet, because honestly, that's such a healthier approach to dealing with a lost land.
No, I really do like Showland quite a bit. My biggest problem with Showland is the lack of relationship with Rand, because I feel like that's where he develops a lot of his, it's sort of this, he's being torn 2 ways. His relationship with Nynaeve, who is clearly someone he's falling in love with, but then also his relationship with Lan as someone he's tutoring who's important to the world. And that part of his personality, I really feel like I've been missing. Like, where is the older mentor to the younger man? Because as a young man reading these books, that's something I always looked up to, is this older mentor who knew what he was doing, who would, with all the confusion and all the craziness with being the Dragon Reborn, would step in and say to Rand, face it on your feet. Right? That sort of mentor figure is something that I want more from Lan, and I haven't gotten it all this season.
Well, we haven't been able to get it because we weren't supposed to know it was Rand, right? If Lan formed an attachment to any of the kids, then that gives it away. And Rand hasn't worked with the sword really at all. So I think that when they bring the sword into his arc and he starts working with the sword, that will be where Lan comes in. And I feel like that relationship is just something they had to push off until later, because it has to be with the Dragon Reborn, and Rand wasn't the Dragon Reborn until the end of this episode, as far as the narrative goes. Because if they don't give us that in the course of the whole thing, they're missing such a huge part of how masculinity gets dealt with in RJ's vision, and they've put a lot of emphasis on the sword. So I trust that we're getting that.
Oh, but in the travel montages, we had some training with Lan and all 3 boys very early on, as their sort of
they just left that out entirely.
They left out all the travels entirely. So that's.
But I strongly suspect that that's part of how we open season 2, is with, okay, well, if you're the Dragon Reborn, you have a Heron-marked sword, then the warder's going to need to train you up. Let's go.
That look between the two of them, where she says there's some goodbyes in the city to make, and he nods, but then there's another moment of silence. And I have to wonder, are they saying because we're both going to be dead tomorrow? So, like, any last minute goodbyes? That was what I assumed. Yeah. I thought that extra pause was like, just, yeah, the next time we see each other, it'll be meeting up to go die. That was all I saw in it. But I hadn't interpreted her nostalgia feeling as being about wanting to let Lan. I hadn't thought at this point that she had decided not to take Lan. I think she's planning on taking Lan. No, she's sending him off. That's why she sent him off to go hang out with his family. Because here's what I think. Moraine is manipulating the situation, and she absolutely created a situation earlier where she thinks the Dragon Reborn is going to come to her alone in the middle of the night. She's setting up that situation with Rand so that she can leave, and I think she's sending Lan off so that she can be ready to take the Dragon Reborn to the Eye of the World without Lan.
Well, she's going to need him if all of them show up at her door, all claiming to be the Dragon Reborn. She's going to need Lan to help shepherd them through. So,
I still wonder about that, just because I feel like I've taken everything from you and more. Like, I have to imagine that she is trying to leave him behind. Like, she set it up perfectly.
Now, you're giving me lots of interpretations in this take of the past that I'm like, well, I mean, if I take that other thing into account, then that makes a lot more sense. But I hadn't until now, so.
But just her whole... I mean, I always am willing to give Moraine more credit, necessarily, than is on screen, right? For setting things up and manipulating people and understanding the fundamental nature of people and manipulating them to get the outcome that she wants.
I don't know. She just seems so strung out and in a corner the whole season. She seems more distressed than in the books, so I figure she's less in control of what other people are doing. Yeah. I'm not good at manipulating people, so I don't give people a lot of credit for being able to do it.
I think she's doing it here.
I can't even manipulate myself. So
I think she's setting up the entire trip with Rand. That she that
extra beat was her taking her last look at Lan because she's never going to see him again. That's what that extra beat was.
That's what I think it was. Yeah, it's her basically saying goodbye forever. Yep.
And then her last words to him in her mind will be a blessing on the woman that he recovers from her death with.
Exactly. Like, think about that as Moraine's final words to Lan. I like her, the wisdom, right? Like, that's your next Aes Sedai. That's your next lover, right? Your next cause. And remember that I always approved of her. That's I think entirely what's going on here. Is that's why we had Steppen, is because we're going to, I have to wonder, even if Moraine survives the last battle here, if perhaps she doesn't release Lan's bond at some point when she thinks she's going to die, and so he ends up being free of the bond, and that's how he ends up bonded to Nynaeve.
That would be interesting. I just find it really hard to believe that she's going to let go of her strongest security asset before getting the Dragon Reborn to the Eye of the World. It seems like going into the Blight, you'd want to take the bodyguard who you'd put into all these dangerous situations before. It just...
Yeah, I mean, leaving Lan and the group behind is not canonical, and I'm going to find out in a couple of hours why they did that.
Yeah, it's not strategic. Like, it's just hard for me to see her pulling her punches right at the last step before achieving the thing. Like, I really want there to be a good damn explanation in a couple of hours.
I think she's literally like, well, I'm mixing together two, nuclear masses, and I'm going to reach critical, right? I don't want any of my friends or family or anyone I care about to be anywhere near it. Like, I have to put them together, and it's going to explode, and it's going to kill me, and I don't want to kill anyone else I care about.
You need to get the Dragon Reborn to the Eye and not have him die to some fucking stick or worm or whatever the fuck is in the Blight. Like,
that's a good point, yeah. The whole Blight thing. Yeah. Lan is the ideal person to lead them through the Blight, and he's being left behind. Yeah. But they haven't necessarily made him the ideal person, like, because he doesn't have that quest to die in the Blight. They haven't established that he goes into the Blight and does these fights and knows it really well. Like, he's not an expert on the Blight that he was in the past.
We just don't know.
We don't know. We don't know that he's an expert on the Blight. Yeah.
And the Blight looks very different than it does in the books. So maybe a man with a sword is less effective in this Blight than it is in the book Blight. Like, I mean, that could be a thing too. It's a tiny forest. Swords are useless. So...
And maybe the Blight's not as deadly. Maybe it's just like...
The human skull embedded in a tree trunk at the final frame would beg to differ.
That's a good point. Yeah.
A few hours and we'll have so many more answers.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Faldara at night.
Nynaeve following Lan and him knowing every little detail. He's like, oh,
so
and he's following me. Interesting.
It's so flirty it's so cute when they flirt through stalking. It's the only time when stalking is cute is when it's Nynaeve stalking Lan through Faldara.
And they make a good point in the chat that this city, unlike Tarvalin and Shadow Logoth, felt very similar, but we figured out that's because they were probably built within a century of each other. Faldara, a much, much newer, I would say newer city.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
definitely
taken down, definitely. And then...
That's even part of the discussion with Loyal in the book, is he's like, oh, I wish that there was some aspect of Mafal Dadaranel, the city that we built, that was still here. It's really depressing to see nothing but, Soviet-era architecture. And then Algomar's like, bro, we're a war fortress, and there's haiku aesthetics going on here. And then that's Loyal's trip, the whole time that they're in Faldara. So, yeah, it is very much a built more recently thing.
Simplicity is beauty over the intricate carving that we see in Tarvalin and Shadow Logoth.
Built for strength.
Yeah. And by humans.
Ugh, boo humans.
I mean, boo humans.
I mean, I guess these are the last humans I should be booing. Freaking Malkieri. But...
And so we don't get a name for this man, but we've had canon Bukama.
Oh, we get a name for this man. We do not get a name for the man that is over my left shoulder. He is not listed in the X-ray. He is not listed on the wiki. He is a nameless random person who is clearly sitting at that table participating. There's a better shot of him later. But it's a young Malkieri dude who's not even listed in the X-ray. It's ridiculous. But the old man is named Zahir. And he is a replacement for Bukama. He doesn't exist in the books. He's not a book character, but clearly this is what would have happened if Bukama had not been so cranky and not gotten murdered in New Spring. This is a different alternative path for one of the arms. And there's 5 armsmen that survive with Lan as a baby. So, but Zahir was not a character in the book. I assume that I was going to say I assume that this is all his family, but they all look very different. But generationally speaking, it seems like we have a grandfather, a married couple, and a child. It seems like we've got a 3-generation household, but they're all described as refugees. And obviously the little girl is much darker than either of the parent age people. So this might be more of a refugee chosen family, because Malkier got shattered to the wind, but they are all described as Malkieri. This is a household of Malkieri refugees living in Shinar.
Oh, okay. That makes sense to me. Yeah, that they would be unrelated, but come together because they all just happen to be Malkier.
Yeah. And you see the woman has the red dot on her forehead. Obviously, the little girl doesn't because she's still a little girl. But they are all... Well, there's a dot. The color depends on if you're married or not married, but...
Oh, I thought the dot was a marriage thing only.
I'm pretty sure it's a maturity thing. I'm not totally positive. I might be combining my real world and my fantasy world.
I think you are, because I think in that sounds like real world information.
Well, I know that's the thing in the real world. I just thought that it was also included somewhere in one of Nynaeve's comments in the later books, but
almost certainly
later books I haven't.
Dot means married.
Well, I know the dot means married. I just thought that there was a yellow dot. I feel like there's a line in one of Sanderson's books, but I've only read them 3 times. So ignore that. But we do see the dot on this woman, which does suggest she's married to the guy. It suggests
that's the conclusion I was trying to reach.
He's not listed in the X-ray, and it's ridiculous. Like, he's right there serving food, talking to Nynaeve, and he doesn't even get random man. And we've got random woman, we've got random child. We do not get random man, even though he's literally right there.
I don't see him. He's behind the WoT Spoilers logo. That must be why they didn't list him, because he got clearly.
Thank you, Grace. I am right. Shove it. Chat is confirming that there are 3 different dots for women in the Wheel of Time world. Blue for unmarried, red for married, white for widowed. So there. Thank you, Grace, for backing me up.
Oh, the details are that's in New Spring. That's why I don't remember it.
Oh,
it's not Sanderson stuff. It's in New Spring.
So then I should have known it. I've read New Spring enough times. Damn it.
Yeah, that's why you were convinced. And I've only read New Spring like once.
Oh, I read New Spring each time I circle around.
Yeah, I don't like New Spring. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's not my favorite book.
Oh, I love it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's fine. I've read it once. I enjoyed it, but it's in New Spring. And interesting. A woman who wears the Kai sign is indicating she has pledged her sons to fight the shadow. Is that all colors?
I'm assuming so. I'm guessing that the Hadori is an equal symbol for men. Like, I pledge to fight the shadow.
Right. So that's weird that you would have a blue unmarried dot that claims that's like, yes, I pledged my sons.
When I have sons, marry me, I will put my sons into the battle lines. It's a really macabre way to go around being like, I will tell my children to go get killed in a war. I mean, I get it. The shadow is like a thing, but it's macabre to wear that on your face all the time. Also, I'm wondering if their food and like table setup are also Korean, because like, you know, Daniel Henney and the Korean garb. I'm wondering if they just decided to also adopt Korean food, because they're clearly serving him noodles. And they're sitting on this like elevated like table dais thing. And I don't recognize it per se. It just doesn't look European. And I appreciate that. Her face.
Okay, what?
Well, no, she's looking in the window, and then you see her look concerned because she can't spot Lan, and then that's why she turns to go, because she's like, "Oh, I like looked at like she looked at the kid for a minute, and then when she looks back at Lan, he's gone." Like,
because like I look at this, I'm like, Lan. Switch to Nynaeve.
Yeah, she looks confused because he's gone.
I guess, and that wasn't clear to me. If there'd been a shot of just the kids or something there, that would have made sense to me. But like she's literally looking at Lan sitting inside. And then she's confused, and then he's outside.
I figured she got distracted looking at the rest of the family, and he slipped out. Like, didn't bother me at all. Seemed logical. He's a warder.
And I can logic it away, but I will say that in the show, I definitely did, like, the first time watching this, I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like, I literally had like a teleport.
Tropey moment.
Yeah.
I just accepted it.
I was like, how did he teleport? Like, I really had that moment. It just took me out for a moment, because I was like, whoa, that was a weird teleport. Like, I don't like that. Give me a moment where she's actually looking at something that's not Lan before you have him appear to give him that beat to get outside. That's all.
He's magic. Just accept that Lan is Batman, and it's fine.
I like that line. I don't rightly think you can call this tracking.
They're so cute when they flirt.
I love the dad's reaction. Oh! Look, he's bringing home a girl. Yeah, everyone gives each other the big eyes.
Oh God, it's so cute. The joy that pours out of that family at the thought that Lan, of all people, has a lady friend is just so pure.
And willing to bring her inside the house, right? That's the thing. Is like,
I'm sure Lan slept. Home.
Yeah, right.
He likes her.
Also, I like the "this is everyone" thing, because like,
yeah, this is everyone. Oh God, it's so cute. It's so cute. But yeah, there's our unnamed, un-X-ray labeled young Makiri man.
Extras, yes.
She's beautiful. I hadn't noticed.
Like, can you just not say that out loud?
Yeah,
like,
God,
clearly.
don't embarrass me in front of the girl.
It's like, clearly she's gorgeous. You just don't have to
make it so obvious. It's like foot stepping on. It's so cute. The dad, adoptive dad is just, he's so adorable.
I mean, I'm headcanoning this is the man who raised him. So father, as much as Tam is Rand's father.
Absolutely. He certainly behaves like a dad who's raised his kid from childhood. Like, no, this is definitely Tam Malkiri edition. See, he serves food. He deserves to be in the X-ray.
Interesting, calls him my Daishan. So it's like a term of endearment, but it's also a title. Be like, thank you for keeping my king safe.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's more in his feeling than just protecting a child that he raised. He's protecting the son of the king he was sworn to and had to leave to be slaughtered. Like, there's two very deep levels of paternalistic love for him to be in his feels about. But yeah, it's definitely like a term of endearment, also a, official title of address. It's funny.
My child and my king.
Yeah, the future of my people, the promise of my nation, and also one of the nearest and dearest people to my heart at the same time.
Do you think we're going to get the Seven Towers in the next episode?
Oh, that would be so cool. Because the Seven Towers have been mentioned. I mean, he did a whole ritual about this. Oh my God, I so hope we get to see the Seven Towers in the blind. That would be so neat. I love this conversation. I mean, he's playing with a kid and he looks at Nynaeve. Is there a more romantic series of shots that they could include for that sequence? Brings her home to meet the family, is talking with the kid and looks at her. Like,
might as well be holding a baby.
Basically.
Like, I want one of these.
Yeah, it's like, we could have this, except that we have to be noble and self-sacrificing and die. But we could have this. We totally could. You and me, I see it. We could do it. Like, it's... God. Lan and his family.
Last night, I ended up a friend's parents' place. Then we ended up for dinner. We watched a movie, Four Weddings, which is just like Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn. Not Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn. And like, it's all about the two of them who are like gotten together and decided never to have children, going to their families, and like they keep handing her babies, and by the end of it, she's like, I want a baby. Which, okay, I hated that aspect of it in the movie, but like it's a similar sort of mood of like he was like holding a baby, and she's like, and looks up at her, and they sort of have that sort of moment of like, oh, babies are cute, and we want one, So it was almost an exact moment from the movie that I just saw with Lan and Nynaeve in that moment.
It's pretty clear narrative storytelling.
Right. Except that was the whole point of the movie, and they just told that story in about 3 minutes. Much better in real time.
Yes, much. God. Wonder what he brought this time. Did he bring Nynaeve? Is Nynaeve the gift? What did he bring?
Yeah.
I mean, there was like 20 minutes of that visit that we didn't get to see, so,
I assume toys, jewelry,
or
candy, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Definitely candy. It's a child. It's a candy.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, she doesn't. She gives you a semblance of a choice. That's what she gives you.
Love it. Yeah. She gave him a semblance of a choice, and that's all I needed.
But then he gives her a semblance of a choice. God, I was yelling at the TV. Now kiss!
Right.
This is the moment. Do the thing. When she walked away, I almost just quit the show in rage. And then she goes in, and it was fine. But
I knew I thought he was coming back out, to be perfectly honest. I thought she was going to stand there for a while, and then he was going to come back out and kiss her. But her going in was, of course, a role reversal of the typical... she stands there helpless until he comes out and kisses her, right? Like, no, of course, she just
was never going to happen with these two. Not with these two.
No, he goes in because he's the one who's saying, I have this mission. I have this, I have things I need to do. I can't commit. And she's like, the fuck you can't? Like,
Yeah. And he doesn't push her away with a 10-foot pole and all this bullshit. He's just like, you're going to need to invite yourself in before I say yes. I am not going to do a single goddamn thing to encourage you at all. That is his 10-foot pole, instead of in the book where he's like, I hate you because you're too perfect. And it's all just, Bookland is so inferior to Showland.
The moment where he tells Rand, like, don't love anyone because you'll just fuck them up. Like, I remember that moment being in the podcast. Even we were just like, motherfucker, what are you talking about? Like,
such a bad life lesson.
Such a bad lesson.
And he probably will not give that lesson in the show, given how his relationship with Nynaeve has been shown to us. I don't think he's going to be that toxic for Rand, which is good, because Rand has plenty of reasons to be toxic that I'm sure Lynn will give him. But that one being out is nice.
Okay, I am back.
Cool. I've just been
slightly less pain.
I've just been chatting with the people in chat. You missed us talking about butts. But yeah, mostly we're just squeeing about how well sex is not being included in the show. We're enjoying that.
Yeah, I miss it a little bit.
I like that there's more than in the books, but not much on screen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, book 1 doesn't have anything, but damn it, I have the male gaze. I miss it.
Yeah, it's probably good for you to get out of that rut and experience the world through different eyes now and then. And yeah, I agree, chat. If we can reduce the amount of spanking by like 99.99%. I still want Semirog. I still want Semirog getting literally spanked by Cadswain. That is the one spanking in the books I really do enjoy. All the rest of them can go.
Spanking is a thing. It was a thing of the 90s that needs to just go. The Semirog thing, fine. Humiliate her, put her on her face, let her eat beans. Treat her like a person. The spanking, again, just isn't relevant. I think the spanking is
some way to humiliate her, and it's some kind of like hilarious corporal punishment. You know, like the insult of that, because it doesn't feel like a weird 90s thing. It feels like this is how you psychologically break a torturer.
to be said, just treat her like a child. Treat her like you would a child.
Which in the 90s meant corporal punishment.
It meant spanking, and now it doesn't. You know, so that's where I come down on that. It's like,
that's true.
You know, put her in, basically do what you did to Egwene. Put her in skirts and make her like, do childish things and two braids and humiliate her in a way that culturally makes sense. But the spanking just never. Again, it wasn't the pain of the spanking; it was the humiliation of it. So,
you want to return to the show?
Yep. Let's do that. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had a thought. Just making Semirog eat through the airplane. Here comes the airplane, Semirog. Open up wide. Every single fucking meal.
That'd be really weird. Might be effective, though. I mean, unless she's into age play, because you never know.
She's not in spanking, so I'm
could work.
No.
That's true. She's like, I want to be tortured, but as an adult. So, yeah, you're right. She did. She was kind of like, I want to have coals on my elbows. I'm going to see what it's like. It's going to be great. Okay, sorry. Back to the show.
Semirog's fascination with pain. That's the thing. That's why I think spanking doesn't work. She loves pain. Pain is interesting to her. Even the pain of being spanked, I think, would be interesting to her. It's the humiliation she doesn't like.
Agreed. She doesn't even think about the spanking as being frustrating. So, such cool costume shots.
Yeah. I was like, cosplayers, pay attention.
Yeah. Also, I feel like he's sighing regretfully as he does this. Like, God.
Oh yeah, no, this is definitely like.
Like I said no to getting laid on the last night of my life. That was dumb.
Right. Ooh, and then the doors open, and he's like, "Yeah."
And he knows it's her because otherwise he'd be over there with knives blazing.
Yeah. Totally.
Like he knows it's her.
And can we all admit Daniel Henney is clenching for everything he's got in this scene? That he is flexing as hard as he can, both with his abs and his chest and his arm. Because
I mean, the way he walks over to her like a fucking catwalker, because he's actually a model. Like, dude is working what he is got. It is intense.
Slabs of muscle, too. Like, slabs of muscle.
And also those scars are, like, gnarly. Like, I like that they included him being scarred as part of this, even though he has, like, one shot with his shirt off.
It's important. It's important that you know, he's, you know.
Then his resolve is completely gone.
Do you want me to go? No.
Yeah, he's like, let me just strut my stuff over to you.
And I like that she approaches and stops, he approaches and stops. She approaches and stops, he approaches. There's all of this, like, they're both giving each other chances to walk away at any point. Yeah,
they're like, you're really into this. You're really into this. Like, and then the tension is just electric. I mean, sparks, actual sparks right there. So cute.
And we get them together much earlier.
Well, there's confessions of love at this point in the original story. Like the whole, I will forever carry a torch for you, even though we can't marry. Like that conversation happens right about now. But yeah. And it's really romantic.
It's very romantic. And for all that he's been carrying the bow, this is, I think, the first time we actually see him shoot the damn thing.
We've seen him draw it like twice before. Yeah, we actually are getting to see him. I hadn't thought about the fact that we've literally never seen him shoot before now. I'm sure that there's scenes of him shooting on the cutting room floor, but yeah, you're right.
Where? But like, what would he shoot at? Right? Like, I mean, there's no
rabbits
not on winter night
for him and Matt to eat on the road.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Also knows how bad of a shot he is here, right?
Well, you notice this is when he's using the flame in the void, and he gets pissed off that he can't hit the center. That he's trying to focus, and it's not good enough. Like, I would be happy if I could fire arrows in that much of a circle, but...
Oh, totally. No, he's trying to hit bullseye. Like, that's which just shows you, like, to hit that gathering of shots is terrible for him, even though it's actually pretty good shooting. Yeah.
Well, and they even, like, they make the music change and they slow the frame rate down a little bit. So you know he's, like, in his focus. He's doing the thing and he's frustrated with his performance. That tells you everything you need to know about his skill with archery as it was explained in the books. Like, just all in that frustration with himself.
The only thing I'll say about this archery place is it's pretty short. Like, he's just not that far away from his target.
Yeah, I hadn't actually considered how funky that is, but...
Because, like, even regular bows, they say they're accurate up to, 100 paces? Like, that's a...
I guess.
That's a football
That's a lot shorter than what we're seeing here.
And or a lot longer, you mean?
Yeah. This is a lot shorter than that.
And then the Two Rivers bow goes up to, 400 paces, which is, 4 times that length, right? So... Yeah,
so, 50 feet seems like a really short range to be practicing on. Or whatever this is. This doesn't... Maybe we can just pretend that it's a weird camera angle.
It does seem to be. I mean, it is in the courtyard. It's sort of the difference between, if you're out in a field, maybe you practice your long shots, but, this is more like darts, where you're just trying to hit the center and get your accuracy as dialed in as possible.
Yeah, I don't know enough about archery to say how bullshit that is or not.
Yeah, do they practice at short distances? And then, I don't know. I think that's a super important line. When you're actually ready to talk, you find me. Because I feel like there's a point in the future where Egwene as Amerlin's seat is going to have to find Rand, and he's going to use that exact same line on her and be like, well, when you wanted to talk, you found me.
I hadn't even thought of that. A lot of this conversation, I was thinking about how it will factor into Dragon Reborn versus Amerlin's seat, some of their later comments in this scene, but... Oh, yeah, that one is setting us up for a hilarious season 7 callback moment.
That, right? This conversation of, I know there's nothing there. Of course there isn't. That whole thing was blown so far out of proportion that, yeah, Perrin might have some emotions, but they're on the DL. He was married to his wife. He doesn't love Egwene. There's nothing between them. It was blown out of proportion for the sake of the argument.
Yeah. And I mean, even more convincing to me than her denial is the fact that she's been mad about the whole Matt thing the whole time. And that's what she's been stewing on. Like, she brushes it aside. Like, no, I'm literally pissed off about a whole separate thing. Like, and this is why it's not a love triangle. It's because she's like, moving on to important adult things. Like, that's how you know it's not a love triangle, because it has to be reciprocated to be a true triangle. It's not. For sure. And then they have a pretty...
And she's not deciding between them.
No, God, no. God, no. Anyone who thinks that this is the same love story as Twilight can go take a refresher lap around the track, because no.
I guess that would make Rand the vampire, though, in that situation.
Yeah, tall, sparkly boy versus the wolf boy fighting over the girl. It looks at a glance like they're going the Twilight route, but then Egwene's like not engaging as the Twilight heroine, so we're fine. A man admitting he's scared, admitting his emotions, and admitting vulnerability. What a fucking miracle. Sorry, just had to point out.
I was scared and I was trying to drive you away. That's like, he's not admitting all of it.
Well, no. As far as the toxic masculinity that we often blame Book Rand for espousing, this is a remarkably woke thing for him to be saying here in the show. So, why do you think she says that? Is that pure confidence? Or has she manifested a dream that she's weirdly sure of?
I would love that to be the case, but no. This is just, of course we're coming back. Nothing bad can ever happen to us. We're 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds who can go into any danger and come out with plot armor on the other side.
Okay.
I think it's pure optimism when it comes to Egwene, because she's just that kind of person who's like, no, of course we're coming back. Why would you, like, I'm not going to go there with the assumption that we're going to die. That's a dumb assumption.
Even the Dragon Reborn's going to live. That's what you're saying. She's just completely confident that even the Dragon Reborn's going to come out of this just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, like, Moraine is wrong. Like, how can she know the future? She doesn't. We'll be fine.
All right, well, I do like what Abigail's saying in chat. It's Egwene. She wears her plot armor with pride.
Yes, she does.
All right. Okay. I want it to be an early manifestation of her dreaming, but fine. Whatever. Like, flashback can always prove you wrong later.
Yeah, I totally can. Because we've gotten all those flashbacks that I predicted.
Yeah. All of them.
He's talking to himself there.
This
power that lives inside of you.
Yeah. He's talking about himself, and he's also trying, like Moraine, to set her up to have a life after he's gone. He's trying to say, I see that you've got this. Take it from me. You can't ignore it. Like, I think he's trying really hard to, Jack and Rose at the end, promise me you're going to go on. Like, he's trying to be like, look, you have a path. But yes, the double meanings for himself about you can't ignore it. Pretty hard to ignore those double meanings. Lies.
You lying son of a bitch.
He's just lying to get her off his tail and to obfuscate and mislead. And yeah, everything's going to be fine, honey. It's all going to be fine. Your confidence is correct. The plot armor is going to be fine. You're fine. God, hurt me more. Christ.
Yes.
Yeah, because you planning to go get yourself killed, you selfish piece of shit. Honestly, I got mad that they went for making up here. I kind of got mad.
I would actually call that unnecessary.
Yeah,
I would have settled for a nice hug, like a more the sibling relationship here, rather than getting back together.
Yeah, I am big not fan of people getting back together, but when I rewatched it thinking that Rand has now made his choice, suddenly it's not so much they're getting back together as he's having one last time with her before leaving forever. And I can forgive it more with that lens. But otherwise, I hate it when people get back together. I've done that too many times. Don't do that. It's not great. And yeah, the music is sad music. It's not get together music. That is true. Okay. Will you as Amerlin, though?
Yeah.
That was the line where I was like, oh, that's going to come back to bite her when she's in full regalia facing the Dragon Reborn. That line is going to come back to burn.
Doing your braid back up after sex.
I mean, braids undone, Hidori off, they got to it.
That's how you really know.
That's how you know, it's because his Hidori is off.
I'm just going to go get some coffee and bagels. I'll be right back. I love that. I hate it when he calls me that.
Oh, it's so funny.
Like, it's some, like, annoying nickname. Like, I'm almost expecting, like, oh, yeah, I was a fat kid, and Daishin means, like, round sphere or something like that.
Yeah,
like, round boy, you know? Like, it's almost sort of the level of embarrassing he's starting off with, and it's like, oh, it's embarrassing. I'm actually a king.
Yeah, but it's also got overtones of Swan and Moraine. Like, this is a real title that can be used in more intimate ways. Like, yeah, he's calling me the king thing again because it's, you know, it speaks a lot to how tight that relationship is. That it's like, it's his pet name. Also, it means I'm a king. Like, the baggage there, the baggage.
I did really want her at that point to be like, I should have known you were a king.
Yeah.
Just like straight out of the book. Like, that's the line I wanted right there, is I should have known you would be a king.
Yeah, this would have been the moment for that line.
Just the parallels between their families being slaughtered. Both of them.
The part where they have almost identical backstories just from different social classes in different nations is like weird. Like, I need to know why they have such eerily same backstories, because they changed Nynaeve's to be like his. I am so ready to learn why they did that. Probably won't be until season 5 or some stupid shit, but you know.
I would actually disagree. I don't think they changed Nynaeve's backstory because she never fucking had one.
Fair.
Like,
they've added to her backstory.
They create like.
But they could have made anything. Why did they make it almost identical to his? There's a reason, and I want it.
Yeah, that he seems to be the Malkier, and she's the Manetheren, right? This is sort of similar sort of parallels between those two fallen kingdoms.
They're going to be such a power duo to build a new nation in the Fourth Age.
Well, and I see Perrin as this sort of more Two Riversy, but I could see Perrin and Nynaeve as her being Queen of Malkier and him being, Saldaean Manetheren king.
Oh yeah, sure. They'll work together fine. They'd be great nation-state allies.
What do you think about now you finally belong? That if everything taken from you, and by pledging to be a warder, that gives you a place in society, which you didn't have before.
I agree with it. I think that they both have really strong insights here. Her insight is tinged heavily with bitterness about what that means. His insight ends up coming across with much more obvious love for her, but I think that she's hit the nail on the head with that. It's just that she's mad about it.
That would be my response. Doesn't she? Especially knowing what I know about the warder bond and the ability to compel and all that kind of stuff, that's the one thing where I'd be like, warders are kind of owned by their Aes Sedai.
The thing is that it seems like they might have introduced a few changes to show bonding with the whole thing where men have to consent and stuff that it's... I agree with the rebuttal. They don't even know if there's
a way to release the bond, right?
Yeah, I do agree that, it's a weird... it makes sense to rebut that, but I like how he's making it a thing of, this is a choice I'm making. I can't choose not to, the way you can't choose to walk away from those kids. But again, she has found her community as a woman who's been orphaned in possessively taking control of the fate of the village. She has bonded herself to that mission as much as he bonded himself to Moraine. So again, the parallels. But yeah, she's talking mechanics. He's talking philosophy. They're not necessarily having the same conversation here.
I like that. They're talking on
hand on face. Does not get more romantic. Mm-hmm. Just doesn't.
No. No. The stay. Just I don't care that you can't get married. Stay anyway.
Yeah. It's just Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. And then we go from a warm scene to a cold scene.
Yeah, Lan and Nynaeve's bed was very warm. This is somewhat cold.
And lonely and scary.
And here's where we get the flashback and the revelation. And I think the final decision, one thing that's interesting here, he rode into town on Bella, but there's no Bella with him right now. So sometime between this scene and riding into town, he must have come across Bella.
That I noticed that, but yeah, I mean, there's enough chaos and stuff that happens that maybe he's getting along and thinks he can't go any farther. And then Bella shows up because she's the creator and she could feel that he needed her. And that's a whole little like mini story that happened in the course of the night that we'll never see. Cause yeah, it's like, where the fuck's Bella? But oh well.
And now he's got clarity.
Well, now he's way more, he has the pressure to focus him into the void much harder, right? Now he's into that totally altered space. If I don't have a fucking choice, I have to acknowledge this. I have to act on it. I have to die. Like, it's, yes, clarity. He has focus and clarity now. And it's sad.
And yeah, there we get to see the power.
Yeah, you see the white thread and then the black sheath, just like it was with Logain.
And we do get the who can see the power matters. Like, I feel like they did a good job on this scene. Unlike some of the other ones where it's like, we see the power maybe when we shouldn't.
Well, I think the power excites ions in the atmosphere when it's being deployed. And that's why there's always a glowy thing for everyone to see. That's just how I'm headcanoning it. It's an ionizing force.
But yeah, we can see just that force there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the way they highlighted that line because it was so important for us, but for anyone who's not, they're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm. Channeling sickness. That little dizzy, like, off feeling. I got 50-30 is basically...
I did want to show this because I think here in the beginning, this is Egwene channeling here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, this is around Egwene's hands. It's all white.
Yeah, I gotta go this way.
And then you see him... Yeah. I can undo us so you can't see us.
Yes.
And then you can see Rand's hand has its own glow coming from behind him that's wrapping around his hand. So see how there's one that's sort of an arc over his inner arm?
Mm-hmm. I always thought that was part of the same flow, doing snaky things, but I don't have the ability to go through it as slow as you do, so it's been hard. Yeah, it's like this, it's swirling around, because it's coming behind from both of them. So where does one... But the one coming around behind his hip, you can see the blackness there. And that's not the one that we were just tracking.
No, you're right. Yeah, so actually on rewatch, it seems like they're both his?
It's hard for me to imagine that Egwene didn't channel because of what we talked about last time. Like, she would have felt it. If she hadn't channeled at all, she would have known that she hadn't channeled. So it makes sense that she did a very weak, ineffective thing that was roughly what he did, and he just did it much stronger.
Or they both did the exact same thing. That's entirely possible that they both did the same thing.
Right. And yeah, Moiraine would have felt it if there had been no female channeling. So I like the idea that Rand is the reason it worked, but that Egwene did try. Because all we've seen her do so far is really weak stuff. And he's supposed to be the most powerful channeler that's ever lived. So even his weak, ineffective puff is going to be like 45,000 times stronger than hers. That checks out.
And we've seen him knock down a door. We assume the same force would work against a Trolloc.
Yeah, I mean, a blast of air is a blast of air, right? Like, physics. You notice most of those voices are his. There's a couple of female voices in there, but all of them.
I think all of the voices for everybody, that's their own voice in their head.
Yeah, I agree. I think they just like 30 times layered and stacked and woven and affected and pitch shifted and all kinds of creepy stuff. Yeah. And then we have Rand and Min actually having a conversation, which is just...
Yes. Interesting that he goes to Min. I like it. I like that that's, he's having a moment. He goes to Min, not to Egwene, not to Nynaeve. He goes to Min.
Not to Moraine, not to Lan, not to Perrin. Well, definitely not to Perrin. But like, yeah, he goes to the seer, the bartender. Go to the bartender. The bartender will fix your problems. That's what bartenders are there for. Oh, put us back in the scene.
That seemed weird to me.
I like it because they suggest to me that they're making her a little bit more of a traditional seer trope and less of a enigmatic and never explained, no mechanical rules seer, because that is classic seer. Fortune teller, card reader, psychic. Whenever you have that character, them seeing you come in before you come in is like, it's so classic. So to me, I feel like they're making her powers a little more recognizable. Otherwise, that line makes no sense.
I kind of hate it. I think, well, okay, here's what I don't like that her powers are a little more like she sees whatever she wants, right? Like, that to me is just weird. So I think it's more she knew he was coming because anyone who she tells a vision about always comes back for more clarifying information. That
would come with the territory also. Yeah.
That would, yeah. It's more just like, this is how it goes every single time, rather than I had prophecy knowing you were going to walk into my bar at this exact moment. It's like, yeah, you're the Dragon Reborn. Of course you're going to come to me for more information.
I figured it was more a matter of she knew that he was going to come back and talk to her because he's the Dragon Reborn. And it's like, well, we are having another conversation. I assumed that there was a bit of a vision to that as opposed to just knowing human nature, but she's a bartender. So she knows human nature pretty well.
I mean, there is the whole he was holding her baby.
And then there's that.
So it's like, yeah, I'm definitely going to see him again.
We're going to talk again.
we're gonna have babies. So there's definitely a talking coming, you know.
And also, she has good reason to obfuscate her abilities as much as she can through clever use of psychological and verbal tricks. She has good reason to hide and smokescreen what she's doing. So,
also, she's a little pissed at Rand in this moment, like knowing that this is the person you're stuck falling in love with without knowing them yet. They're still a stranger. It's
You're
like,
just another guy in a bar that wants something from me, and I have to fall in love with you. Not fair.
Right. Not good. Yeah.
And that is very much canonical to Bookman. She has a hell of an internal arc to get over being chosen by destiny to love this punk. I like that they're including that in Showman.
Oh, yeah, easy. Sure. There you go. I'll tell you that.
That's great.
If that's what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. No big.
She's no Aes Sedai. She can lie in a heartbeat. That moment of I know who you are. Like
the first time she looks at him straight in the face and meets his eyes. I know who you are. My heart stopped briefly. It's so... Min just looked at Rand for the first time and said, I know who you are. I can't. There are not words for my feelings about this, but they're good feelings.
Well, and I hope that's a line that gets used later on. You know, when he's like, I don't know who I am as the Dragon Reborn, whether I'm Louis Theron or LTT. I know who you are.
And he'll be able to trust it because she has always known who he is.
Always. From the first moment they met.
I love that. Oh, that's good. That's good. And she just suddenly gets real with him. She was blowing him off, and now she's like, all right, fine, let's get real. Let me get some shot glasses. Like, she becomes a different person once she's willing to actually do the work. Her whole demeanor doesn't change, but there's a layer that drops off.
Yeah, and so this being the first vision means it's a super important vision, and it's one she's been thinking about her entire life. Probably more than a lot of her other visions.
She would have been, canonically, she's what, 5-6 years older than him? She would have been very young if she's still the same age gap above him. 6 years old and getting that vision, and it's the first vision she's ever had. I mean, that would be a life-changing moment that she's been building up to meeting this guy ever since she was like a really little kid. I also wonder if this means that every seer or prophet person or doomseer or omen in the whole world, all those meters pinged at once when Rand was born. Because Katara had the foretelling and Min had the foretelling. And it made me think, like, what if this was such an impact that every single type of person who has any way of perceiving omens and visions of the future, like if they all registered that moment. I don't know. I just like the possibility.
I mean, it makes sense that in world, there's a lot of people who know the dragon's been reborn, if not who or where or when or why.
Right. The Shanshan have a zillion different ways of keeping track of the pattern. At least one of those had to have registered something seismic hitting the pattern, I think.
Do you think that was before or after he went up to the blood snow?
I would think it has to be after, because this is a moment of choice. I don't know that, like, I feel like the way they're presenting this, like, Tam could have gone either way. Like, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that he would make the choice he did, so she would have had to see it after. But I don't know. I'm not completely... So she sees the man in armor in the real world and then sees these visions around him.
Right, right. And at 6 years old, she's like exactly 6 years older than Rand, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like and she's in Tarvallen. The blood snow occurs right outside of Tarvallen. Mm-hmm. So assuming she's in Tarvallen during this fight, it could very well be that day that she sees Tam, whether it's the morning of or later that night.
Yeah, there's just so much we don't know about where the Ileana companions were with respect to the inside of Tarvallen and how Tam left the army and picked up Kari and headed home. Like, we don't know. Like, did he grab Rand and just bail from the battlefield? Did he take the baby back to Kari and, like, finish out his term for a few more weeks to get his paperwork in order? Like...
Where's Kari?
Where is Kari? Yeah,
Canonically, he brought her back with him, so she met her outside of the Two Rivers, so she shouldn't be in the Two Rivers right now.
Did he meet her while he was enlisted, or did he meet her on the way home? Like, we know that...
Well, not on the way home, because she wanted a baby.
I mean, he met her before the battle, so he probably met her while a soldier. Yeah.
That moment right there where she, like, grabbed his hand in relief, I bawled. I ugly cried at that moment.
Every time.
Just like, every time.
Because
I
again,
still felt it right there.
Her ability to act with her face is insane. She's like, I'm about to die. Me and my baby are about to die. Oh my God, I'm getting help. There's actually a chance that my baby is going to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even as I myself am dying.
Yeah, because all she cares about is her baby at this point. Yeah, mm-hmm. And just the relief on her face and her need for support. She's like, this is actually the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought leaving my baby and my kingdom behind. I thought becoming Fardar Ismai. I thought the battle I just went through. I thought those things were the hardest thing I'd ever done. But actually, this moment, oh man, it's so good.
Abigail was asking, is the vision, did she see Tam in Tarvallen and then have the vision of him, or did she see him and then have a vision of him in Tarvallen? I think they were both in Tarvallen. She makes it, I interpreted it, and I can go back and rewatch it, that she's walking around Tarvallen when she sees Tam, not that she sees a vision of him in Tarvallen.
See, the way I interpreted it up until now was that she turned a corner and was just suddenly shocked by seeing the entire scene as a vision, like a foretelling. I didn't actually think that there was a man in armor in front of her in Tarvallen at all. I had not interpreted it like that at all.
I do.
So, and I'm not disagreeing, but like now my entire take on that whole thing is, this is the fifth thing that I have to completely rejigger on the fly from what I thought, despite having watched this episode 3 times. Like, God damn it.
Same. Let me go back and re-listen to that, because I think she's saying she's in Tarvallen and saw a man turn the corner, and then she sees Tam in Tarvallen, and then the vision hits.
This ruins my whole thought of every prophetic person getting a ping at the same time.
Yeah.
This tears
That's why I was a little confused about that, because I was like, how would everyone prophetic see Tam all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It was the first vision I ever had. I was a kid walking down a dark alley in Tarvallen. So I don't see, so the vision hasn't, She's not having a vision of herself walking down a dark alley of Tarvallen.
Correct. Yeah.
She's actually walking down that
that was the setting in which she had her first vision.
So she's in the Tarvallen, and she turns the corner, she sees the man carrying the heron-marked blade, and then we go into the vision as she's describing it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then this is the vision that she has.
Yeah, I was making it out in my head to be more like a foretelling than how her power works, and that definitely changes a bunch of the headcanon I had constructed for the episode.
So she's describing, I saw snow and blood, I'm seeing the blood snow, yeah?
Yeah, I just missed the entire meaning of how words work the first 3 times. Also, the first time Rand ever touched the sword, it was the sword. The sword is what cut his umbilical cord. And cut him away from his mom. The very first instance of that sword in his life was cutting his connection to his mother.
Whose blood is in the umbilical cord? Isn't it the child's? Because the placenta is the interface.
The placenta is the blood barrier, yeah.
The blood barrier, and that's on the other, that's on the side of the umbilical cord not touching the baby.
Right, the umbilical cord connects the baby to the placenta.
Right. So the umbilical cord is full of Rand's blood.
Yeah.
So that was Rand's blood on the rocks.
Oh, so the world's safe. We can go home.
Yeah. Not the rocks of Shale Ghul.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. It's a black rock. It's the same thing.
Nah, fair enough. But that is like Tam, yeah, there's Rand's blood on the rocks. That's how he lives, how he's born, and how he dies.
Oh, God, it's so true.
I'm convinced she saw, so now actually after doing this, I think she saw the vision before Tam went up to the blood snow. This is all...
She's seeing his future.
His future.
So she sees him in the street. She sees... Yeah, because I was just sitting here wondering, like, how does she know what the future holds if she's seeing after the... Like, I don't... What? So yeah, I think you're right. She sees this soldier who doesn't know what's in store for him and sees... Oh, your week's going to be interesting, buddy. You're going to find a baby. Well, number one thing you don't expect to take home from a battlefield is a newborn, but that's what's going to happen to you.
Most of the time in battlefields, you end lives. Don't start them.
Yeah. You usually like bring home less of yourself, not a whole nother person. Like, yeah. 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 I agree. And also it's curious to me that, she sees wooden house, shepherd, 2 rivers. Moraine never got that information. She didn't know to look for a sleepy shepherd village. She didn't know to look for sheep. She didn't know to look for where rivers come in pairs. None of that information ever left Min's head, as far as we know.
Or a heron mark blade. Like, that's the big sign, right?
Yeah.
Right? Look for a man. Look for a man in 2 rivers with a heron mark blade, right? Like, and here's Rand carrying around that heron mark blade the entire freaking time. Yeah.
So it's like
clearly
Moraine,
she's been lying. Doesn't have the information.
It's just, so Moraine has known her since she was young, but she's never known everything. Min has kept that bit back. No matter what Moraine has done for her, she always kept that part of it for herself.
That first vision has always been just for herself and Rand.
Yeah, she's probably the first person she's ever told about it because he was there. So ostensibly, it's not a secret to him. Kind of.
Wouldn't life be weird if we could remember everything from the moment we were born? Be a totally different kind. Like,
I've heard about people with memory things where they can't forget anything, like any detail at all. Like, it obviously kicks in later than the first day that you were born. But I've heard that that's like an actual like mental like brain malfunction where you can't forget anything. And it sounds exhausting. So all the more so if you could go all the way back to the day of your birth.
I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what autism is like the inability to filter out stimuli, right?
Yeah.
Because our brains filter out so much of what's going on and interpret just the important parts. Whereas, you know, some form of autism can be interpreted as like your brain treats everything as equally important, including the unimportant stuff. And that's why you're so overwhelmed by everything.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that, but applied to how the human brain processes memory. There are people suffering with that in the world, and it sounds like no fun.
I think she's entirely honest about that.
Which means we're going to get at least a hint of circus. She said carnivals of the circus.
Carnivals.
They're gonna we're definitely the circus is not being cut completely. They just told us we're getting some piece of the circus arcs. I'm excited.
And what do you think about rainbows?
My first thought was Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai stuff to do with the Amerlin and with the power and the institution of the Aes Sedai.
I, for some reason, my head went to making it rain in Iridian.
Rainbows. Yeah.
Could also be fixing the weather, but he doesn't do that. So I'm going through.
But when he also, there's kind of rainbow lights scattered around him during the Crystal Column visions. So rainbows all around him could be two different things in the waist from the books. So I like that better than my interpretation of Aes Sedai. I didn't know where else to go with that. Literal is obvious. It's too obvious. Going with literal rainbows is too fucking obvious. But I love that.
And Aes Sedai colors aren't a rainbow.
No, they're not. It's a spray of color. But yeah, making it rain in the waste and all the allegorical stuff to do with like rainbows and post-flood God promises and stuff. I like that has to do with yes. So we're going to get the circus and we're going to get actual literal rainbows in the desert and 3 beautiful women. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Min, for not throwing yourself under the bus.
Thank you.
Because yes, you are fucking beautiful.
Exactly. I like his smile at the 3 beautiful women, but I also like the way Min is like, yeah, I'm going to tell you the good stuff and not tell you all the awful stuff that I'm also seeing.
Well, it also diffuses the blow of what she just told him to make a joke.
So clearly she sees the other world. It's also not entirely clear. Her visions seem to be much more under her control than they are in the books. Where she's like, do you see this? Yeah, I can see that. Or I can not see that. Or I can know what's going on or not know what's going on. Like, there does seem to be an aspect of agency in her visions that she does not have in the books. Because in the books, the visions happen to her.
Yeah, she's sort of able to like block them out sometimes and allow them to come forward, but that's a very wishy-washy and not often exercised aspect of that for her. It does seem like in this, she's able to turn it off and on more like a channeler can turn their power off and on. Like, I don't think she can control what she sees, but she can like go in or out of the headspace of seeing it more with agency. Seems like,
and also detail.
Maybe like knows what she's looking at more. Also,
she doesn't know. I honestly it's one of those things where it's like, it's not the relevant question. It's not whether you make it back. It's how do you make it back? What condition are you in when you make it back? Yeah,
I interpret it as just, again, kind of like the prime directive of all seers in every fantasy series ever is you don't tell people definitive yes/no answers about the future. Doesn't matter how fixed in stone it is. It doesn't matter if they will try to change it. Shit will get weird. It's the prime directive of knowing the future is you don't tell people if they're going to die. That was how I interpreted it. But also, the whole, like, you're going to come back as a very different person. You cannot go home again. You will not be in Kansas anymore in your own skull after this. I think she knows. And she's, for one reason or another, like, no, that is not information you get. Incorrect question. Not going to help. Yeah.
And he interprets it as you won't come back.
Right. And she doesn't want to tell him the bad news, which is a fair interpretation. She wouldn't. If she did know, she wouldn't tell you. So I asked chat while you were gone what they thought the eye of the world was, like with respect to Min's vision. Like, what is she seeing and why is she like, oh, you seem like a decent person and I hope that doesn't happen to you. And the legend said, I reckon it's Rand screaming and a swirl of past dragons around his head, like whooshing into him. Like, and I dig it.
I don't know what's going to happen at the Eye of the World. That's the one thing about the Eye of the World, man. I have no idea. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what they've changed. Like, because the Eye of the World makes so little sense in the books, like, there's not, the purpose behind it isn't super clear.
Yeah. It's just Min says she can see it and she knows what it means to a certain extent. And it's like speculate wildly. What? Yeah, I don't know.
I like the idea that maybe Ishamael is there and nowhere, like he's appearing in the dreams, but he's physically just at the eye. That's like where he's been trapped this whole time, like in the Eye of the World. And like he can get out to like influence dreams and stuff like that. And
maybe it's like a little bit like with breaking the seals to let the Dark One out. Like you have to like get into the Eye of the World and like deal with the Forsaken trapped there. And then turns out, it's like that was the practice boss, not the real boss. But like,
right, because, and we know Ishamael is the one who's partially bound, like that whole thing. Like I can see him being maybe bound physically in that place, but being able to influence the Black Oddjaw and folks through dreams this entire time.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that's what partially bound means.
I could definitely see them putting all of that onto the Eye of the World. The Eye of the World is so vague. It can definitely do some heavy narrative lifting for the show that it didn't do in the books. Because in the books, it kind of Chekhov's gunned itself. Be nice to see it bang a little harder in this season finale.
Having gone back, I actually went back and re-listened to Eye of the World because of Rosamund Pike's version that got released. So I just finished that. So I literally just listened to that scene. And I'm actually more and more convinced that the army of Trollocs that he destroys is supposed to be the threat. That basically without the Eye of the World, Rand wouldn't have had enough of the One Power to take out the Trolloc army, the army of Trollocs and Fades, which then would have overrun the world, which would have been an instant win for the Dark. And the whole point of the Eye of the World is to stop that first invasion that's been building up for thousands of years.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge. He could not have done that on his own. It teaches him a lot just to run that much of the power through himself and level him up. So, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and then we talk about how, and then I think it's also a big clue for the cleansing, which is also like...
Sure. I'm so curious if they do the untainted power for Eye of the World or not, or if they make it something completely different. Like, because of that, like the cleansing has to happen, and this sets up the cleansing, but
I like the idea is the boar is the place where the Forsaken are trapped.
Yeah. And to have that be the eye. Have the boar and the eye be one and the same. That
sort of the same.
Ties up a lot of loose ends really, really neatly.
And we'll find out in a few hours. Well, that's untouched. This reminds me of the scene where Perrin is in the bedroom before he goes and frees Gaul, and he puts his stuff down, and then he goes and kills all the White Cloaks and comes back and is like, well, I picked up my pack and my bow, and it looks like I've never even been here.
I didn't even light the candle. Yeah, nope. Totally. Yeah, totally. So in this, we get a lot of really cute teasing between Nynaeve and Egwene about the bed. It's sweet. I like their interaction about it.
And in this scene, it's a relationship between Nynaeve and Lan, and in that scene, it's the relationship between Perrin and Gaul. Which again, if we were going back to our earlier scene where Layla was the only woman Perrin ever loved, maybe he's got that crush on Rand. Maybe there's something between him and Gaul. I'm just saying, they wouldn't be.
Maybe Tala Eelman are his type.
Right? Yeah, that could be.
Release me.
Yeah. He's like, I like tall redheads.
Yeah, there's not quite many of those in the Two Rivers. I guess I'll marry some short brunette. It's fine.
Just waiting for her to come back. Just be like,
Yeah. And it's not like a puritanical, like, I'm better than you. It's just this, like, friendly teasing. It's so great. Nowhere. I was nowhere.
Well, you've been somewhere.
You've been somewhere. And I wasn't somewhere. In this bed. And you look rested, so.
Well, and also the idea that I'm imagining this exact scene played out in reverse the first time that Egwene slept with Rand. That Egwene comes back after spending the night at the farm up on the hill, and there's Nynaeve being like, why is your bed unmade? Where have you been? And here's Egwene getting a chance to reverse the situation, and there's that whole like, I think this is absolutely a role reversal for the two of them.
Canon accepted. This is not the first time I've had this conversation, and Egwene is enjoying getting to be on the other side this time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Love it.
Well, especially since we have canonically Egwene sleeping with Rand, right? So that's a whole thing. Like, that's a relationship that's been happening, and like you could see where, and it was probably happening on the DL, and I'm guessing Nynaeve wasn't super happy the first few times it happened, and I'm guessing Egwene got a talking to, and so I can see this role reversal being very satisfying for Egwene.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had a dude inside of you.
Yeah, you were too busy doing other things in that bed.
She's unwavering in her desire to go.
Because of course she is.
Yeah, and Egwene and Perrin just don't even acknowledge that. Yeah, Nynaeve's like, I'm sorry I stirred things up, and then Perrin walks in and it's like, okay, never mind.
That whole interaction continues to confuse. Like, I'm sorry for stirring things up. And then Egwene gives her this nod that I can't tell if she's accepting the apology or accepting that Nynaeve recognizes she's completely off base.
I think she's just accepting the apology. That's just like something that just doesn't need to be brought up. Like,
But again, it's
and
like
by acknowledging
naive
it,
think that there was something to stir up, and Egwene just is like, "You're a fucking dumbass." It's a weird, and then she doesn't apologize, and then Nynaeve doesn't even begin to apologize to Perrin. I mean, unless she did that off screen, and the room's just still really awkward because the air's not truly clear.
Because it's Perrin's having inappropriate feelings. Like, everybody else is fine, but Perrin is having this crush on someone who's not his wife, and that's inappropriate, and who's with Rand. So everyone's just sort of like, ooh, yeah, that Perrin guy, he's really got to deal with his issues, doesn't he? Like,
maybe the wisdom should go talk to him and give him some relationship counseling.
Well.
And now Perrin's on board with Team Sacrifice, which is more back to what I expect from Perrin.
I also like that he doesn't say he's back on Team Sacrifice. He just nods to agree with Egwene's speech.
Yeah.
Egwene gives a speech, Perrin's like, yes.
Yeah, that's what she said. Underwriting that. And then Nynaeve's like, fuck, if two of them are going, I don't have a choice.
And then this is a flashback to earlier in the night.
Then we get your classic door knocks double swap situation.
Where you're like, oh, Rand's coming into the room with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, nope.
I called it that it wasn't that first time. I'm like, I've seen this move before. Like, it's not the same door.
Yeah, totally.
I wasn't expecting Lan to be there, though.
I like that. It's me. Okay, yeah, we're going.
Her
like,
face
that was her immediate.
Yeah, that was her face of like, it's the resolution of a 20-year quest that she's finally actually staring at the Dragon Reborn and knows him, and also the release of tension of now I don't have to take the others. Now I can grab my shit. I can go. I know the others can live. Like, so much happens in her head in that moment.
I can save Lan's life.
Yeah. And the life of his love, which is also important. And the fact that she can just trust Rand's thing. Like, I'm not surprised that she trusts him instantly, but just watching her go from, I used to not know if you were the dragon and now I do, she's a pretty good actress. She's not as good as the actress that did Tigraine for pure face acting, because that is God tier, but she's really good.
It's also the amount.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is an immediate, like, she masked the bond. I'm glad they spent a little bit of time to make that an unusual thing that he goes and checks, and like, it is this whole, like, we don't have to be told what masking the bond means because we got that earlier.
Yeah. I also do, just because I'm pedantic, want to point out that the amount of sun coming in through the windows is very much past sunrise. They were supposed to all have left the city before dawn, and now they are in a room gathering together at what looks to be about 10:30 a.m. I understand from a cinematic perspective you need light, but do these people not have clocks? Is this...
I think the angle of light has more to do with the windows just being up high and the sun's pretty low, but you're right. That doesn't really work, does it? Because then you you'd have light on the ceiling. It's
movies tend to have very poor chronology of day timing because filming is hard and lighting is hard, and I usually accept it, but it's egregious when they say we're going to be gone before dawn multiple times and the party still hasn't even had breakfast and the sun is pouring in the windows. It's just frustrating. Like 10 seconds of thinking. Sorry, moving on.
Well, and what I liked... let me see, I'm not sure if that's correct, but when Rand goes into Moraine's room, there's no light.
It is much earlier. It's before dawn when he's in her room. I did notice that.
So you can see, like, this is very much like darkness. And so I think that's why they're doing the sunlight, not necessarily to say, like, oh, this is... Well, one, it's clearly they didn't get up and go, but also, like, just showing the two different timelines.
Yeah. All right, so pause here. I guess it's not as good of a shot as I had thought, but you can see that there's a structure in the pass between.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I just interpreted that as part of the fortress behind it. But yeah, now that you're pointing it out, I can actually see that.
Not as good of a view as I had thought it was, but yeah. There's just proof from the other side.
And then we have the trees.
Oh, God. They're so weird looking. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
They look like starfish because they're all 5-armed.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen a bunch of starfish crawling around along the ground, like a pod of starfish?
Yeah, well, I've seen videos, but yeah. Yeah. It also makes me think of, like, just the roots of mangroves. Not the whole tree, but just where the roots go into the water part of mangroves.
Right.
Yeah, very much like hands, like it's almost like skeletons rising up out of the ground or hands grabbing the ground.
Oh, yeah, the five fingers does make it look like it's just, like a bunch of decayed cans, like sinking into the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So, does it move like starfish? Does the blight literally move like a wall of starfish towards the Southlands?
That's kind of what I imagined.
That is horrifying.
Yeah. Just like super slow movement, almost imperceptible, but slowly creeping south.
Oh, I hate this so much. That's a good idea. That's good. Ew.
And that, the blight creeping south isn't like a corruption or growing. It's literally the trees going... like coming ever closer.
Ew. How do you fight that? I mean, how can soldiers fight tree fire? Yeah. Eludra, please build cannons now. Flamethrowers actually would be better than cannons, I suppose.
Also, the idea that the jungle is a dangerous place, I feel like has some home in Robert Jordan's mind in Vietnam.
Yeah, the creepy, crawly vines and having to weave through trees. And it is worth mentioning that this does look a little bit like where kudzu takes over in the South. And it's a much bigger plant. The vine is much thicker, but especially when we turn around and see the whole blight in the next shot, the way that kudzu swarms over the landscape is it's reminiscent here.
And as I listen, I feel like I can hear branches creaking, which makes sense with the whole like creeping forward thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, here you can see how it just looks like a diseased, pockmarked landscape.
It looks like it literally coats all the topography with just like kudzu, just like there is no break in it. And yeah, those branch snapping, cracking noises. This feeds into the idea that a sword would do no good at all crossing the blight. The blight is not something that swords can deal with.
No. And can we just say how her hairstyle is matching her mood?
Oh, yeah.
How tight and controlled it is earlier, and now how loose. And also the fact that they just rushed out. He came to her in the middle of the night, and she's like, okay, let me throw on a dress and let's go. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no putting her hair up. There's no makeup. There's no even really getting ready.
No, yeah, she put on her shoes. That was it.
And yeah, you complained about this, that like they're not carrying packs, they're not carrying water, they're not carrying
water bottles. Like, I understand not preparing to come back. I do not understand dying of dehydration halfway there.
I mean, she does have a belt pouch. There could be some supplies in there.
What, some iodine tablets to treat the water that they find? Skull.
The other thing, the skull could actually not, I just realized, doesn't necessarily have to be a death because of the blight. It could be like that was a battlefield, somebody died, and then the tree grew up through the skull. Like, you see that in the real world.
Yeah, I was wondering about, like, does this represent that the trees are bringing up the dead, or that they eat people, or that this was a battlefield, or that somehow human souls and bodies are co-opted into the tree to help give it, like... The skull just suggests a million creepy possibilities. I have no idea which one I favor most. But yeah, no, bones coming up with trees out of the ground is totally a thing. It's a thing. And that's just Lion King. That's just straight up Lion King right there. All you 90s kids know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. We don't go to the dark place.
No, we don't. 2.5 hours. We did that. This is not going to end well. Oh my God. In just an hour, we're going to be able to start learning exactly how badly this plan of theirs goes. Oh, it's exciting. So, end of episode 7 deep dive. That was a lot.
It feels like we're coming to the end of an era, even though we've got episode 8 coming. Like, oh my God, there's so much anticipation for the show. I feel like it just started and it's already almost over. Season 1 anyway. So, it happens so fast with the first 3 episodes dropping. And then, I know certainly for my life, I've been just desperately trying to keep up. And I don't want it to be over, but I can't wait for the rewatch.
Yeah, the show has definitely warped my whole sense of time and of reality and of what my priorities are. not gonna lie, I'm a little bit glad that the end of this sprint is in sight. As a content creator, more than as a fan. As a fan, I just keep pounding that shit into my veins. But as a content creator,
I watch it more.
I'm looking forward to the end of the sprint that we've been on, because it's a lot of work to think through all of this as more than just a fan. As you can tell by the length and the number of these videos that we are doing, this is a lot. But yeah, we're set up for a whole new world, right? Like you said, it's just started. I really feel that. We have finally set the stage for the thing to happen on.
Thanks, Fire Phoenix. We've loved having you here as we've been doing these.
Yeah, Fire Phoenix has been helping so much. Oh
my God, yeah, and you've been wonderful on the references and looking things up and the doing the Googling while we've been talking. So that's been hugely helpful to have you around. So really appreciate everyone who's contributed to these videos, who has their own opinions, because some of our insights are ours, but a lot of our insights are the people in chat who are yelling at us saying you missed stuff. So yeah. It's hugely important to have you guys here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're some of the only people whose discourse we care about. You can contribute. Everyone else, we don't care. But you guys in live chat, you're the ones who get to contribute.
To quote Tarval After Dark, the rest of you can fuck off. But
no, the rest of you are all lovely. You're just not here live, so you don't count in the same way.
Right. That's what they mean by fuck off. That's their whole. If you've listened to that, it's a very it's a term of endearment.
Endearment.
Term of endearment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will say it has been. We're going to have a whole lot to talk about our experience doing this after the end of the next episode breakdown. Then I think I want to do our retrospective experience of what it was like to be a content creator for this. For now, we will just leave you with the tease that we have a lot of feelings about being content creators through this. And we will go into them in depth. But for now, thanks for watching. Please like the video, comment, rate, review, follow us on social media at WoT Spoilers on every platform. Please donate to our Patreon and enjoy episode 8 for the umpteenth time, because undoubtedly you've already seen it many times by the time that you're able to watch this video.
And don't forget to look away from your screen every once in a while. Your eyes get tired.
It's true. Go stretch. Bye.
Go stretch. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?